Good. Hello, everyone. It's been a warm day here in Austin. The temperature is beginning to go down just a bit, but it's been feeling very Texasy of late. And it's been reminding me of things that can happen in warmer weather. And one of the things that can happen in warmer weather, once the weather gets a little bit warmer, especially up north, is you can hear new springtime sounds like the sounds of frogs, especially spring peepers. It can be quite a sound that you hear as you're going to bed at night and as you're waking up in the morning. So this story is not about spring peepers, but it is about frogs, a particular kind of frog called a bullfrog. So, once upon a time, there was a young bullfroglet named Piper. Now, a froglet is not quite a frog, but not a tadpole either. It's like a little frog. They have just dropped off their little tadpole tails and they look like frogs, but they still have some growing to do until they are full bullfrogs. Well, this froglet was named Piper. And Piper lived in a pond with her mother and father and her many brothers and sisters and her many aunts and uncles and her many, many, many cousins. They were all friendly and family in that pond, and everyone knew each other. Well, her best friends were all cousins and brothers and sisters, and they all learned how to swim together while they were tadpoles, and they learned how to stick their noses out of the water when they were froglets. And now that many of them had dropped their tails, it was time for them to learn how to crawl out of the water and onto the land. This was a very big moment in the life of a frog, and one that froglets looked forward to and were excited about and dreamed about, and so did Piper. Piper was actually quite good at being in the water. She was an excellent swimmer, one of the best of her age, and she was even better at diving. She could dive so deep, all the way down to the bottom of the pond, and she could touch the seaweed down there and come splashing to the surface proudly faster than most of the other frogs. She was a speed swimmer, could go across the pond. She could play tag swimming. She was excellent in the water. And when the time finally came for them to start training to come out of the water, she was an eager participant. The first step was learning how to use her back legs, the power in her back legs to be able to launch herself up and out, digging her toes on her back legs into the side of the pond, up against the land, and hoisting herself up out of the water and onto the grass. This was difficult, and it was difficult for all the froglets. She tried once and fell back in, and tried twice and fell back in, and tried 3 times and fell back in. She wasn't able to do it very well at all at first, but she tried and tried and tried until finally she was able to push herself up and out of the water, surprising herself and others, and landing firmly on the ground. This is a moment that all frogs remember, their first time on land. Up until this point, she had just been swimming in the water. She knew the water very well, and now she stood on the land, which was hard underneath her. She could feel the grass. She could feel the solidity, and she could feel the air on her skin. She had felt it on her nose before, but now it was on her back and on her legs. She was out of the water. It was thrilling. And it would have remained a thrill and a very positive moment for Piper had it not been that moment that one of the guard frogs let out an alarm that it was time for all frogs to get back into the water and to dive below. This usually meant that there was a bird or a creature that may be coming near the pond and they needed to be safe and go to a safe distance under the water. Piper was used to this call. She had heard it many times. It happened every few days. It was almost ordinary. But this was the first time that she had heard it while on land. Now she knew what to do when she was in the water. She just went under the water, swam down low. It was almost instinctive. She knew exactly what to do. But now she was on land. There was no diving. She needed to maneuver back toward the water and then hop. Something we think all frogs can do, but this would have been the first time she had hopped on land. She couldn't do it. Not at first, at least. She did manage, after 2 or 3 tries, to get the hop correct and long and strong enough to go back into the water where she was safe. But in that short period of time where she couldn't do it, she felt a panic. She felt frightened. She was scared. Well, she got into the water and she dove down deep. But as she was swimming down under the water, she told herself she was never going to do that again. She would not go on land. And she held to that. Piper was strong. Piper was stubborn. When she made a decision about something, she stayed with it. This was why she was such a good swimmer and such a good diver. She tried and tried and tried and tried until she succeeded, just like how she got out of the water and onto the land. But in this case, she felt a kind of panic that she didn't ever want to feel again, so she decided never to go on land again. And her parents tried to reason with her after a few days, thinking that she just needed some time. She needed to try again, but no, she said she would not. And after a few more days, they said, well, all frogs need to go on land. No, she would not. They let it go for now. But the days kept going, and all of her friends and family, her age, were going up onto the land and back into the water and exploring around in the meadow surrounding the pond, just like frogs do, but not Piper. She stayed behind. And so finally a day came where there was a very big bullfrog, an older bullfrog, still young by bullfrog standards, but older than Piper, that came and spoke with her father. She didn't know what they were talking about, but she could tell that they were talking about something quite serious. And then the big old bullfrog, whose name was Buford, turned round and saw Piper and had a curious expression, a little bit bashful. But Buford went into the water and swam out to where she was and introduced himself, and she knew who he was. And he said, well, I was talking with your father, and he said that you're quite a good swimmer. She said, yeah, I guess. Well, and he said that you were quite a good diver, too. Yes, I think so, she said. Well, he said, I was wondering if maybe I might be able to dive with you. This was a curious question coming from a big bullfrog, but yes, she said, after looking at her father, who nodded his head that she would be able to help him out. She wasn't quite sure why he needed help, but she went along with it. And they counted to 3 when they would go under the water and then dive down. And so she counted and he counted. And under the water she went, and she dove down, 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 all the way to the bottom, touched the seaweed, and came all the way to the surface. She waited there And a few moments later, Buford came to the surface and coughed and sneezed and made it to the top and looked relieved. And then he said to her, "Thank you. You see, I haven't been doing any diving in quite some time, because a while ago I dove down to the bottom, and I dove a little too far and I got myself a little tangled in the seaweed. And I was fine, but in that moment of getting tangled, I got scared. I panicked a little bit. And when I came to the surface, I thought, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to feel that again." She immediately thought about going on land. This was remarkably similar to what her big fear was. His big fear was in the water and hers was on land. But then he said, "I've been meaning to try it again because frogs have to dive. And then I talked with your father, who said that you were really good at it. And so I thought if I did it with you, if I dove down with you, I'd be okay. And I was. And I'm feeling so much better now. I'm actually feeling kind of brave." With a nod, he swam off. Now, Piper didn't go to the edge of the water where the land was and try it again. No. But she did keep thinking about Buford and the look on his face and how relaxed and proud he looked when he swam away. And so that night, after a long day of swimming and diving and playing with her friends and family, she went to the side of the pond where she and her mother and father and brothers and sisters slept. And she tucked herself into the side along with her family, and everyone was all cozy together, and she was quite comfortable. And sticking her nose out of the water, she could see the land. She could see it shimmering in the moonlight. And she could hear in another pond the spring peepers were singing and making such a racket that it was music to her ears. It calmed her. And then she thought of Buford again, the look on his face, and she wondered to herself, maybe I could go on the land again. Maybe I could try it again. Maybe I could feel brave like Buford and actually succeed. What would that be like, she wondered. She continued to wonder and listen to the spring peepers and smell the night air as she relaxed more and more into the cool water, her warm mother and father and brothers and sisters, the sweet night shimmering with stars above. Little Piper the froglet fell deeply and softly asleep. Well, I hope we can do a story tomorrow night. If not, we will let you know when the next story will be. And I appreciate all the offers of support. Maybe we will hear from you over in the Facebook page or otherwise. And perhaps I will see some of you in a few minutes over in our parent time conversations. So sleep well tonight, everyone. And I hope that you too can take brave intentions into your sleep and perhaps be able to find some way to help out around the house, to face something that you've been meaning to face, and maybe try something new. All right. Good night.